So let's talk about vertex tools in chapter 5 here. It's a small chapter. We've covered a lot of the tools that we're going to be primarily modeling with. Really all we got to talk about are welding different vertices together and a few different merge techniques we can use. And I'm just going to simply demonstrate that on a simple cube, and then we'll move straight into making a household object, and you can get a better idea of a complete workflow when you have primarily all the tools already learned. We'll be just mixing it all the tools up together from the last 3 chapters. So let's just go ahead and get into covering our glossary here. So of course by now you probably know how to select things, but let's just review that. So I'm going to go ahead and make a simple sphere here, and so we have primarily let's see, a few ways that we can select vertices. We can hold right click to click on the object and select the vertice. So if I hold right click on the object, I can select vertex like so. Let's see, and I can also go in the shelf up here, select by type, and then vertice is the square right there. Now we can see I can select vertices like this. Let's see what shortcut we have here. F9 will shift between the different selection modes. So there's face, there's edge, and F9 brings up our vertices. Or I can bring up my modeling toolkit right here and just click on the vertice wireframe button. And of course, don't forget you can grow and shrink your selections by pressing shift and greater than or less than, or the period or comma on your keyboard. And we can just exponentially grow our selections like so. So let's get into the real meat and potatoes of the chapter, and that is merging vertices together. A lot of things can happen whenever you merge verts, but I'm going to show you just the technical way to do it, and we'll get into the application when we're building our hammer. Alright, so I'm in vertex selection mode, and there's a few ways we can merge vertices, okay? So let's talk about regular merge verts versus a merge to center. So I'm going to have at least 3 vertices selected here. This triangle of verts that you see right here. And you can go to Edit Mesh, Merge, and merge to center. But I'm going to use my Shift right click radial menu that we're comfortable with using by now. And the very top option is Merge Vertices. And we have 3 options here. We're going to talk about what each one does. But first, let's talk about the difference between merge verts to center and just plain old merge vertices. Well, the easiest, most simplest one is merge verts to center. And what this is going to do, it's going to pick the average point in space between all 3 of those verts, and it's going to just merge them all to the center of all of them. Alright, so let's see what merge verts does. And I'm going to select the extra little menu box right here, and we get a menu that looks like this, and we have something called a threshold and an option for always merge 2 vertices. So I'm not going to touch any of these. I'm going to leave them at default settings, and I'm just going to hit apply. Hit apply, and they should be merging any second now, right? Hit apply. Well, nothing's happening. Well, why is that? Well, because this threshold value right here is very important when we're merging vertices together. Basically, it is the maximum or minimum distance in which vertices can be merged together. The higher the number, the farther away vertices can be from one another before they merge. And that's going to be a very important tool to know in the future. It allows you to kind of control which vertices are getting merged in certain situations. So you can see that value is still a little too low. I keep sliding my slider to the right, and eventually, well, that's interesting. At point 2, it merged these 2 vertices, but not this one. We must be just within the threshold that the distance between this top and bottom vertice is short enough where they get merged, but the difference between the left and right vertice is too great for this particular threshold value. Let's see what happens if we nudge it up just a little bit more, up maybe to 0.3. There we go. Now all 3 vertices are in the distance threshold we see in our options here. There's also an option where you can always merge for two vertices. So maybe if I sit down on a point 1, let's see what happens. Guess not. Let's see. There we go. So if you're just needing to merge two vertices, and it doesn't matter what threshold amount you have it at, you could have it at 0.00001 if you wanted, 0.001. But as long as this checkbox is marked and you have two vertices selected, you'll always be able to merge them to center. Basically, it's just a way to do a merge to center with two vertices. Not much different than merge to center right here. Alright, so those are two different merge tools we have. Let's look at our next tool we have, target wheeled. So what I'm doing is I'm left clicking a vert and I'm holding down the mouse button, and we get this orange circle. When you let go of the mouse button, that orange circle goes away. So let's see, how can we use this tool in the same way maybe we were using the last two to merge our vertices together? Well, with my left mouse button held, I click and drag to another vertex, and we get a line blasting straight down here. And when I release, it merges. So you can see this can be a quick way to get some quick merging done of our vertices. And now I've just created the ugliest shape in the world, but it was really quick doing it. So our target wheeled tool right here, very valuable, very nice to use. Alright, so let's continue on. Those are our three ways we're going to be merging vertices in the future. And real quick about the target wheeled, you can also find it in our modeling toolkit over here if you select the target wheeled, and it even works for edges. Let's see if it works for faces. I don't think it'll work for faces, but for edges and verts, it's looking like it'll do just fine. Alright, great. And sometimes this will happen to you. Sometimes your undo shortcut will quit working, so sometimes you have to manually get into it. That bug's been with Maya for a few years now, but it was okay. I was able to undo regardless. Alright, so let's talk about averaging vertices. So when we talk about averaging vertices, what does that mean? Well, I'm going to select some verts. Okay, and before I do that, I'm going to kind of mess them up. Just move them in space. So you can move verts with your move tool. Very tricky to do it without creating coplanar or just non-planar faces. So we have this face right here that's just all messed up. We have like a valley here, but no geometry to define that that valley. So it's non-planar. Alright, so with these messed up vertices, I just want to do that so I can get some unique geometry, so I can show you guys what merge vertices does. So if we go to edit mesh, or did I just say? I meant to say average. So if we go to edit mesh and we go to average vertices, boom. You see what happened? I press G on the keyboard to repeat the last action. So what it's doing is it's basically putting a smooth on all the vertices I have selected. That can be really useful whenever you're dealing with organic shapes and you kind of need to keep the same kind of shape going on, but you just need it to kind of create some nice flowing topology. So there's also an average vertice shortcut there. So now we're selecting even more of those little weird pieces of geometry, creating that jerky, non-planar topology. And we're hitting G. And I'm imagining the iterations is basically the severity of your average. So average vertices is nice because we can select just the parts of the model that we want to put a smooth on to create this nice even topology. Alright, and one quick little tool here, Chamfer Vertices. So we're going to select the vertex. We're going to hold shift, right click, chamfer vertice, and boom. Where that vertice was, now we have a face. And we can adjust its width within the pop-up menu. But the end gone rears its ugly head. Now if we go to mesh, clean up, select matching polygons and faces with more than 4 sides selected. If I hit apply, we now see that Chamfer Vertex creates these oddly shaped pentagons, 5-sided shapes. So you do have to pay attention when using the Chamfer Vertex. But it is useful in certain situations in which a vertex needs to be turned into a face. Alright, so those are the basic tools we're going to be talking about this chapter. Merge being the primary one that this lesson is going to deal with. That's going to be our, as common as maybe extruding or inserting an edge loop or the multi-cut tool. You guys will be using that a lot. So why don't we go ahead and move into making a hammer here. Alright. So what we're going to focus on is creating a household object in our current chapter here. So obviously I would rather you guys go and find something you can physically hold and model from something you can hold, but I can't exactly demonstrate that without using a camera, and I don't want to do that. So I'm just picking up a visual reference. But I want to challenge you guys to go into your households and find something that is right at your speed or level of proficiency with the modeling skills you currently have. Hammers are pretty good. They have some interesting shapes, some interesting ways to demonstrate some of the tools we've learned. So I always opt for the hammer. So I got a little visual guide here, but like I said, I want you guys to pick a household object that you can hold up with one hand. So it can be bigger than your hand, but as long as you can hold it in front of your face at your computer desk, that's what I want you guys to do. And you may even have to bring it into the lab with you. We can maybe do a little show and tell, and I can see what you guys are trying to model. You know, keyboards and mice are popular. I don't know, not a CD holder. I'm just looking at things on my desk. Ooh, a tape measure would be pretty fun to model. Just all kinds of things. A stylus and its pen, things of that nature. Something that'll challenge you but not frustrate you. Alright, so let's get started with making this hammer. And I'm going to bring it back real quick. The first thing I'm going to do is make a cylinder, because we're going to start making the handle of this guy. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead, and the important thing is picking how many axis divisions do you want your cylinder to be. We can go up to 50, but that's way too much geometry for what we're trying to do right now. So I can go in and decrease the subdivision axes on the fly here. I'm going to go with 8 though. 8's going to be the ticket. Alright, so I'm going to make this cylinder. The next step is scaling it to be about the size of the hammer that I want to be making. So that looks about good. And don't worry too much about getting it exactly correct right now. Since we know how to select and move vertices now, editing dimensions of our objects will be much easier. Alright, so I'm going to do about that height. Maybe a little bit taller. A little bit thinner maybe. And the first thing I'm going to do is kind of give it its oblong shape. Because hammers aren't completely cylindrical. They kind of have this egg shape if you look at the top right there. And then we also notice we have some subtle, I don't know, divots here. It goes in, then comes out, then kind of goes in and out again. So it's kind of got a wave going on. So I'm going to use my Insert Edge Loop tool. Hold down Shift, right click, Insert Edge Loop. I'm going to make that first divot inside. And then it needs to come out again and then kind of get thick for a while and subtly go back in and then flare out. So I'm going to hit G to bring up that tool again, so we'll get it to come out. And again, I'm not stressing too much on the exacts of it right now. I'm going to just kind of eye things and get an idea that way of what's going on. Alright, I'm going to be switching between my 1 and 3 on the keyboard to go between low poly and subdivision mode constantly, just so I can get a more organic feel of this shape here. I don't see much of a difference going on here. Okay, now I'm going to select some vertices, and I'm going to start shoving and shaping this thing a little bit more easily now. I think I need to do one more edge loop, because I kind of need to keep that mask going for a little bit there. Maybe bring this down. And maybe flare this out just a little bit more. In fact, I'm going to do another edge loop down here. Kind of give it that strong bottom we have going on right there. And that looks pretty good. That's exactly the kind of shape I was looking for. You know, I think it might be a little too narrow. And I mean by too narrow, I mean just a smidge too narrow. So I'm going to bring it up just a little bit. Scale it in the Z direction. Give it a little bit more thickness in that direction. And I'm going to go with that shape right there. I like that shape. So now we got to get ready to set up the head on this hammer. And it'll be really tempting to create a whole new piece of geometry to get this headpiece going. But we're going to make it a seamless piece of geometry. We're going to go straight from this organic handle kind of into more of this geometrically hard-edged metal part right here. So we need to get set up on the head for that. So why don't we look and see how we can do that. And it's a little trick I've used over the years. What we're going to do is we're going to go into our face, and we need to turn this oblong round shape into basically a rectangular hard edge shape. So we're going to do that. I'm going to select just the top of my face here, and I'm going to extrude out, and I'm going to extrude up. Alright, that's not too impressive though, is it? I've just made a little a bigger oval now. Well, now here we're going to use the power of snapping by going up to my top view here. I'm going to select vertices, and we're going to snap them to create our rectangular shape. So I'm going to focus on these two top vertices right here. Be careful not to select any other vertice. And I'll go into perspective mode so you can see what I'm doing. I'm getting these middle two sets of verts, so 4 verts altogether. And then I'm just going to snap them straight up there. So I did that by holding down V on the keyboard, and I selected only one of the arrows here. If I just selected anywhere in the center of the arrow, it's just all going to snap to the center there. That's not what I want. I only want to snap in one direction. So if I just snap in one direction, they keep their dimensions in the Y and X axis, but they snap along the Z axis. And that's just going to be the way we're going to do pretty much all sides of my mallet here. So it's just a matter of selecting your corners on your round shape here. And now we have our rectangular mallet top in the works here. So all I did was just select those middle verts, pairs of verts, and just snapped them along one side of the handle here. Alright, now I need to resize the dimensions here. So to do that, I'm going to select a side and a side, so matching sides. And I'm going to scale in at the same time. Instead of just moving them one by one like this, you know, there's no way to say that these are evenly spaced. But if we scale them at the same time, we're going to know that their measurements are going to be mirrored on both sides. And that's what we're looking for. Alright. Something like that. Maybe exaggerate the rectangularness right there. And now we have something that's a little bit more in tune with our mallet right there. Alright. So, why don't we go ahead and maybe finish setting this head up. I'm going to extrude one more time. And there we go. Now we can get into making the teeth of this hammer. The part that, the crowbar part, the part that will pry nails up from boards if we need to destroy rather than nail something in. So let's make the teeth. Alright, so I'm going to extrude from this top part here. I don't need to extrude from the bottom here because you can see that only the top half of this mallet actually extrudes out to make these teeth here. And in fact, I think I need to double click this edge loop here in edge mode and maybe bisect it, because it looks like about the halfway mark up the total height of my mallet head. That's where the teeth start coming out. So there we go. Paying special attention to your reference material will make your model so much better. So now with both faces selected here, these are the two faces I'm going to extrude my teeth out from. I'm going to hold down Shift, extrude my faces, and I'm going to keep faces together, and I'm going to slide that to off. And I'm not going to go into my translate tools. I'm going to use the extrude handle tool. I'm going to extrude in the Z-axis here. And the reason I'm not going to touch any of these here is because I can now grab my scale X, my red cube here, and scale them individually, and now I get my teeth. I'm going to take special care to make sure I scale it at just the right width. Alright, so why was it important to use that extrude handle tool? I'll redo it, and I'll do it the quick way. So I'm just going to use my W key to move them out. Now I'm going to use my scale tool to do the same thing, and I've just messed it up. Alright, well that's because I didn't have keep faces together turned off, right? Yeah, so I just turned it off. Surely the scale tool will work this time. Dang it. So now you're stuck with trying to guess exactly how much each one should be scaled by or moved apart from. It's just a lot of guesswork. But we can get rid of that guesswork by clever use of the tools that we're given. So I'm going to keep faces together, turn that off, and I'm going to keep using my handles here. And I'm going to scale them in each direction. It can be a little hard to get the right selector. So now I'm scaling in just the Y direction, the green cube there. And I really need to see how far these teeth come down. They come down past the metal base here. They come down in line with the wood on this picture. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to bring it out far enough and just really come down like so. But now I don't have any geometry to create that curvature. Once again, I didn't use my extrude manipulator, or my extrude handle very well. Extrude, keep faces together off, bring it out, scale it in the X direction. Well, could I just scale them like this? By George, I think I can. That's pretty cool. Or no, I'll just keep going in the X and Y direction. I guess it doesn't matter. Well, look at here. I can add divisions using my poly extrude tools right here. And when I use my extrude handle tool, they all come with me. They don't just get kind of stuck. See? They don't follow me with the regular move tool. You guys are going to really catch on to this. I'm having to use it so many times. And just a quick double check to make sure I'm not having any duplicate faces, so I undid that. Always double checking myself, no matter how long I've worked in my I'm always double checking myself. Keep faces together, turn it off, turn the divisions up, do my scales in the X, scale, oh, let's rotate. There we go. There's that cube I want to get. And I'd press W by reflex. So I'm going to do this quick. I'm not going to wait anymore. Keep the faces together turned off. Scale it more in the Y direction. Divisions, turn them up. With my extrusion tool still selected, I now bring them down. All my divisions follow suit. And now I'm going to bring up my rotate and kind of rotate it down. Alright, that's too many divisions for my blood. I'm going to go down to maybe 5. That's all I'm going to need. Alright, so now I'm going to just go into vertex mode, and I'm just going to go into side views here, and I'm just going to create that natural curvature, or not natural, but you know, that really nice looking curvature. So I'm kind of exaggerated up there. And there we go. And there's the teeth of my hammer, perfectly crafted. Alright, so let's make the mallet of my hammer now. Alright, so let's look at what we're dealing with. We get an interesting shape coming on right here because it's really flat here, and then it turns cylindrical again right here. So we go from cylindrical to hard edge flat to cylindrical again. So let's see how we can rebuild a cylindrical shape without redoing our geometry. Alright, so a few things to consider here. Our mallet doesn't come out until, let's see, about halfway up right here, so we already have our halfway point there. But I'm not really going to be able to build too much of a cylindrical shape out of this geometry right here by moving my verts around. Well, you know, I might. Let's experiment. Let's see if we can get a cylindrical shape. So first I'm going to extrude my face. And I'm just going to use my regular move tool this time. And do you think I can build a cylindrical shape with this? I might be able to. I'm going to select the corners of these extruded faces. And I'm going to scale them in. And you know what? I might be able to do this. And there's a cylindrical shape back for me. So what does it look like? It looks like it goes in and out. So don't bring it out too far. Kind of just want the shape starting to take place here. Maybe bring it down a little bit. I don't know how, I'm not knowing how I feel about this geometry here. Let's keep going with it though. So I'm going to extrude now. And I'm just going to do the extrusion dance to make my mallet. I don't like that. So I'm going to fix it. I'm going to undo what I did. And I'm going to have to add another extra edge loop. I think that's the only way we're going to be able to do it. So I'm going to add an edge loop right here. And then I'm going to kind of adjust my geometry. I'm just basically making a bigger extrusion point. Instead of like this stubby area up here, now I have this whole area right here to work with. And I like that a little bit more. So now when I extrude, I have something more to work with. Like so. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to select the corners here. And I'm just going to scale them inwards. Alright. And then I can keep scaling things around, pushing them. And that's just turned out to be a better shape. I'm already starting to get that, you know, nice arc shape right here. So let's keep going. That was the ticket right there. Sometimes you just can't be afraid to experiment and try ways of modeling out, and then if it doesn't work, put the work in, undo it, go back, revert to an earlier save, make it look good. Don't just settle because it's the easier way to do it. Maya has a habit of kind of bullying you around, saying, "Oh, you wanted to make this shape? Well, it's a little bit hard, so let me show you an easy way that doesn't look as good." You can't let Maya do that. Alright, so we also have, it doesn't just go straight out. So we kind of have maybe this thing shape going right there. And then this little vertex will come up and that'll help us create our rounded off look right there. And that's already looking a ton better than the last way we tried to do it. I'm pretty happy with this shape right here. That's good stuff. You know what, I might kind of just, I'm just playing around trying to get some cool looking shapes going. And I don't think that holds true. Well, actually it does. Look, these top two verts kind of come back, don't they? Maybe even this one comes forward a little bit. I'm just nitpicking right now, Trying to get that shape locked down. Alright. And then we even have maybe these verts coming out a little bit more. Maybe pull those back. Oh, gotta pull these back too, I guess. And then with these verts selected here, I can kind of angle it up. So it's just about getting comfortable with shifting between your different selection modes, knowing how to use your shortcuts on your keyboard to go between move, rotate, scale, and picking the exact verts you need to shove around and really define your shape. Alright, so if I pull back, I can see that my mallet isn't tall enough. It's kind of flatter, right? It's not as chunky as it should be. So maybe we should select all the verts right here and just scale it up a little bit. But then that makes my mallet look a little too tall. Well, then that's just a simple matter of selecting just the mallet pieces and then scaling them down to a more round shape. There we go. That's looking a little bit better. I mean, in sub D mode, it's looking a little dumpy because I haven't added any support edge loops, so that's not too good. We'll go back in a second and fix that. Alright, so why don't we go ahead and create our one little detail that I usually put on my hammers, and that's creating kind of like a little divot here that suggests how our handle was attached to our mallet head. So I'm going to select just those top faces, and I'm going to kind of create an indentation here. And you can see that I'm not quite getting that box shape that I want, and that's just a simple matter of snapping this vertex right here. Now I have my rectangular shape back, and since there's not too many faces, I'll just select them one by one, and I'm going to just extrude them down. Kind of create a little divot there. Alright. So our hammer's coming along. It looks kind of weak and pathetic. You know what? I think I want to do this too. I think it just needs to be longer in general. That's looking better. I think this needs to be a little bit thicker there. And I think as a whole, that needs to be a little bit bigger. And we'll pull it out a little bit more. There we go. Now my hammer is looking a little bit more substantial. Alright, so we're pretty good here. I'm going to save my hammer now. Call this hammer 001. I think I just called it 002. Oh well. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create some support edge loops on my hammer so it looks more like this instead of either Tonka toy plaything, block of wood, or dumpy rubber band gooey hammer. So some support edge loops will help with that. So I'm going to go ahead and create some obvious ones right real quickly. So I'm going to go and do some support edge loops. So I'm going to go to Insert Edge Loop tool. I'm going to create one at the base there, maybe right there, and make sure that my tips of my hammer, and you know what, I've already made a mistake. I'm doing a lot of tweaking on this hammer here, so I'm going to undo that. I'm making some changes to this hammer that are going to be really hard to undo later in the future. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this copy of the hammer by freezing transformations, resetting transformations. I'm going to bring up my outliner here. I'm going to call this hammer orig mesh, and I'm going to duplicate this hammer. And I want to call this hammer high poly mesh. Let's call it mesh. Alright, and I'm going to make different layers. Here's my original hammer. Create layer from selected. I'll hide it. Call this Orig Lay. And select my high poly hammer. I'm going to start adding my support edge loops to. Create a layer from selected. So now I have two layers. One with my original and one with my high poly. High layer. Oh, I got a color on it. Nice. And now I'm ready to actually start going into my hammer. Now if I make a bunch of mistakes to my support edge loops, all I have to do is duplicate the original again, and I haven't destroyed my whole model, and I don't have to spend time trying to fix a bunch of geometry that I messed up on when adding these support edge loops. Alright, so why don't we focus on making the block of my hammer hard. See these hard edges right here? All the way around? Let's do that. So I'm going to go to support edge loop. You know what? I think I'd rather focus on the base here first. There we go. Put a support edge loop right at the bottom here. Now I'm going to focus on, let's see, this add them on that side. Looking good. Add them on the inside of my teeth right here. You'll notice that these edge loops are traveling from the top all the way down my hammer's shaft to the bottom. And that's going to do something interesting to my nice round handle here. Oh my goodness. I've created ridges down my handle. I mean, but that's looking pretty good. I got some hard edges going on up here. But I got to fix. Man, these creases are looking bad. So, what we're going to do is we're going to tie off what I like to call tying off a support edge loop. And this is where our merge vertices is going to come in handy. So, what we're going to do is where the part of the model where we go from softer, more organic round shape to our hard metal shape up here with these hard edges, we're going to go to that edge loop where those two separations of shapes begin, and I'm going to snap my vertices and tie it off. See how we're kind of just tying these edge loops off to one single point here? Alright. So I've just snapped the vertices, but yet I still have the edge there. Well, now we need to merge these vertices. So I'm going to go to Vertex. I'm going to select these verts right here. And since I snapped my verts on top of one another, I can go to Merge Vertices, bring up the extra little box here, and I'm going to put a real small value in, 0.0001. And that'll ensure that vertices that are on top of each other are going to be the only vertices that are going to merge. So I hit Apply. Nothing happened, right? Well, these vertices did merge, like so. I do one click, and I grab one vertice. Alright, surely that'll fix it then, right? No, that just made my hammer look weird. What we need to do now is we need to get rid of these bottom edge loops. And tying off the edge loop here, I'll double click there, double click this, double click that. So I got these edge loops on my handle selected. Look what happens though if I go to the way to the top, all the way to the top of my hammer. They stop where I tied off that edge loop. So with just the edge loop on my handle selected, I can now hold down Shift, right click, delete edge, and now I get my hard surface, hard edges on my hammer, and soft here. But it looks like we're still getting some creasing right there. How are we going to fix that? Well, maybe we need to tie off one more edge loop back, like so. So if you're getting these, and this is a good example to show how poles, a place where edge loops meet on one vertice, and it's like a crossroads, a fork in the road. I'm traveling down this highway, I get here, and I don't know which way to go. Same here, we're all meeting at this fork in the road. So that's what we call a pole in modeling. And those poles can create those creases that we're seeing that we don't much care for there. So I'm going to go one more up and make this pole happen further away, and there's me merging my vertices together, and there we go. And I think we can fix this. We're getting a little divot there. We can fix this by inserting an edge loop right there. It kind of diminishes that little divot there. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to add my support edge loops. Oh, shift right click, not just right click. More edge loops right there. Another edge loop right there. I'll definitely put some edge loops up in this little divot here. Oh, we need to maybe make one down the center there. And we're getting closer to that shape we like. Do I need to make a... Looks like I'm getting those, the edge loop is making those nice hard edges there, but now we're getting the hard edges not only on my handle here, but we're getting them on the mallet too. So let's see how we can tie off up here. So we know we like to do this right here. We started out by doing the one directly where the metal meets the wood, but we learned our lesson. We're going to do one on this little edge loop up there. So we're tying those off. And we need to tie them off up here as well. So I'm going to tie off right there. And go on the other side and tie it off. So now I have all my vertices snapped on top of one another. And the cool thing about snapping vertices on top of one another is I can select all the verts in my hammer. And since my merge tolerance is so low, all the vertices that are not on top of one another are going to be ignored. And all the vertices I just snapped, hit apply, they're going to be merged. So now I can go in and do some edge loop deleting on the front of my mallet there. So notice how I have this tied edge loop. It's only affecting the top of my hammer here. I'll delete that. We still have our nice hard edge we saw in our source material. Delete this bottom edge loop, and since I tied it off, we're only getting the bottom of our handle. See, because since these vertices are tied off and merged here, our edge loop terminates at these poles we're creating. So it allows me just to isolate the edges and delete them where I don't want those hard edges to occur. And it's a little bit of advanced concept doing some high poly modeling like that. And it looks like I grabbed a vertice, and this will be a good learning moment. So I grabbed some verts and shoved them. Now the top of my hammer is looking derpy. So let's fix it. So this is going to just be kind of an eyeing thing. So I'm going to go to the top here. And you know what? I'm going to snap in the X direction. Make sure I'm in the right view. Press 5 to bring up shaded. And there we go. Well, that's a weird shape. Yeah, I'll keep it. I like that shape. I don't know why. Alright, so with a few up, you know what we're forgetting? Let's do an edge loop right there and one more at the bottom. And there we go. So, with some support edge loops and learning how to tie off our hammer here. Oh, looks like my edge loop here. I need to redo it. So what happened here is the support edge loop that was on the front of my hammer, I gave it this nice kind of sharp edge right here. It got merged right here. And look what it's doing. I don't know if you can see it on your screen, but I'm getting some mushy geometry right here. So I'm just going to double click this edge loop around the front of my mallet, delete the edge. Now I get that ball peen look. I don't want it. And hopefully with my correct topology, if my topology is correct, I can just add it back. No more mushy whatever. Alright, great. And are we getting some poles here too? Maybe. Great. Alright, so that is how we'll do our hammer. I'm going to leave it at that. Don't stress too much about creating the support edge loops and all that. If you're just not getting it, focus on creating that original shape right here. This is what I'm really going to grade on. If I can see like a good original shape like this, I'm going to be happy. The high poly stuff is just something you can start experimenting with, kind of getting a feel for. I can show you 1,000 videos on how to do each one, but I mean each model is its own puzzle. So the more you get used to learning how to do some high poly modeling in sub D mode, the better. But I'm mainly going to be grading. I'm pretty much 99% going to be grading on just this low poly original version. If you can describe the shape like this, that's perfect. So yeah, find your household object that you can hold with one hand and model it out for me. That'll be this week's assignment. Alright, later guys.